Today, I want to talk about some of the culture shocks that I just can't seem to get over, even after 2.5 years of living here in the UK. Because these things blow my mind just about every single day. And I bet most people are probably going to be able to figure out what it is, but I'm just going to say it. The fact that we as Americans have been lied to our entire lives. Let's start with the biggest lie of all. Healthcare. Healthcare is such a reality check when you move outside of the United States because we are sold a lie that if you want universal healthcare, then you must be a socialist, which for some reason is a bad thing. I think it's because it's associated with the Socialist Party, the Nazi Party. We're told we're lazy. We're told that we just want to mooch off the system, basically. And even for people who are doing things right, you are still overwhelmingly encompassed with medical debt. Even when you have insurance, you have to pay premiums, you have to pay copays, you have to pay for prescriptions, you have to pay a portion of your bills for your service, for your tests, for your treatment. Here in the UK, you break your leg, you just sit down. We got you. Just wrap it up, send you on your way with some crutches. It's really insane when you think about all of the propaganda and lies that we're fed in the United States around healthcare and how so much of it is put on us as lesser people or that we're doing something wrong if we request a service like healthcare from our government, which we already pay a ton of tax into. And that those who are extremely unfortunate and have make very little income or are elderly and even children, even those under 18, still have to meet certain thresholds in order to even qualify for government subsidized healthcare, even with Obamacare. Every time I have to make an NHS appointment, every time that I have to go to the doctor, even hear someone talk about the doctor, this lie permeates into my brain and actually gets me really frustrated and annoyed. Look, I'm not here to say that the NHS is perfect because it definitely needs help. And there are people who do struggle and have horrific stories surrounding the NHS. Coming from the situation that I came from, it's absolutely astronomically paid out of pocket for basic health care, like having a child, getting sick, people who go bankrupt because they have cancer. It's just, you're never going to convince me that there's anything inherently wrong with the NHS system. Of course, there's things that need to be revamped and bumped up and definitely need to be improved. But that really comes down to funding and government oversight, not the actual system itself. So yeah, healthcare was a huge reality check for me. And it's still something that I have to remind myself that I don't have to worry. I can just make an appointment and go to the doctor. That's uh that's a culture shock that I don't know that I'm ever gonna actually get over. So the next one I feel like I'm never gonna really get over is the food. So it's just the culture around food. If you in the US, you can get like a triple stack burger where it's like three burgers on top with cheese and all the fixins and everything. And you get like supersized fries and the drinks as big as your head and all of that. In the UK, it's normal regular sized portions. And I appreciate that. As someone who struggles with their weight, I love the fact that it's one less thing I have to think about when I'm eating, when I'm making my decision on what to eat. I know the portion sizes are going to be reasonable, but I always sort of forget that they're going to be reasonable. And the other thing is I always forget how expensive food that's unhealthy for you is here because of all the extra taxes versus food that is healthy here. And in the US, it's reversed. So another lie is really that the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, excuse me, which is the federal oversight in America of our food, that the FDA is actually looking out for the health of the American people. And it makes me really wonder how much stuff I've consumed throughout my life in the United States through food, through medicine, through water that actually was extremely toxic and unhealthy for me. Living here in the UK, every time I go to the grocery store, I'm amazed that the prices are reasonable, even though they are a little bit high now because of inflation, but compared to what it is in the United States, ridiculous. that although it does pain me to not be able to get some of my favorite foods here, I kind of understand why, because they're truly unhealthy and have way too much sugar and additives in them, which is why they're banned here in the UK. I always have to remind myself whenever I go to the grocery store, whenever I go out to eat, that it's more about health, that food isn't about, that addiction, that additive fix that you have to get and like you do in America, that food's about just substance, keeping you healthy, keeping you going. And that the stuff I want to treat myself with is probably something that I shouldn't have. And there's a reason that it's enormously expensive to buy here in the UK. The last culture shock that really gets me still, that I always have to kind of check myself on and, just do a double take on, is the quality of life here in the UK. Even though I've been here 2.5 years and I'm enjoying it tremendously, and I am so appreciative of the quality of life that I have here, it still baffles me that the mindset is that you leave work and you stop working, and no one brags about being busy, and emails aren't being answered at 10 o'clock at night, and people go out to lunch and eat. And people enjoy their time off and have these big holidays on a regular basis. I feel like in the United States, we eat lunch like raccoons in a corner in fear if we're away from our desks, because heaven forbid the boss might see us and might think we're not committed. And then the next day we'll be fired. Heaven forbid we take a walk on our lunch break or after dinner on our own in the US. People will think that there's something wrong. Our car broke down or something. Just sit down and enjoy a meal out and have a conversation with people instead of rushing our food down our throats before we have to get to our next destination. It's such a different perspective of life. And there's a podcaster that I watch that says this all the time, that the hardest thing to escape is your own perspective. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, because Americans, because we're all in this bubble of our way of life and what we're all used to, and because it's so vast and because it's so vast, most Americans don't leave the United States in their lifetimes. So they don't understand that there are other ways and that those other ways might actually be better. And even though I came from an environment where I was aware of that, living here and experiencing it's such a different point of view and such a different perspective. And it still wakes me up that I'm in a place where people care. People know work isn't the most important. People understand that family comes first, that I don't have to make excuses for wanting to take a lunch break, that, I can create a world for myself and my family around what makes us happy and not what we need to do because our healthcare is tied to our job. It's really hard to explain to people who haven't experienced both. And I suppose being later in my age, a little bit more emotional and a little bit more, thinking along those terms. But the UK has just taught me something that America never could, that I deserve a life outside of my job. I know things aren't perfect here in the UK by far. I know the cost of living is brutal for a lot of people. It rains like the clouds are being paid to get rid of their water. That came off kind of weird. But anyway, the vibe here in the UK is just so much more conducive to real living, whereas the vibe in the US isn't. Here, you're considered a person instead of a product. Honestly, I think that's why I am still here and I'm still loving it and I'm still so enthusiastic about being here. I mean, the US has its benefits. There's some people that enjoy the bigger, the better kind of lifestyle and grinding all the time. But for me, having smaller portions and more of an actual life is so much more worth it. Anyway, I'm curious of what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe if you aren't already and consider joining if you can. I appreciate it. Until next time, guys.